Welcome to the Financial Planners South Africa podcast, a show dedicated to driving the positive evolution of financial advice, specifically in South Africa. To join a global community of financial advisors, sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice, head to xyadvisor.com. Portfolio Metrics is thrilled to bring you this podcast in support of our common passion, people, and the evolution of wealth management. Our global business links precision investment management to expert financial advice through partnerships and technology. Portfolio Metrics is an authorized financial services provider. AssetMap is a proud sponsor of this podcast. Are you looking for the next big thing in advisor technology? AssetMap is used by thousands of financial advisors to help create more meaningful conversations with clients. See for yourself how AssetMap is leading the next phase of financial advice delivery. Learn more at asset-map.com/Louis for a special listeners discount. This episode is proudly brought to you by Allan Gray. They say it's important to live for today. Although that might be true, we can't forget to plan for tomorrow. There's a lot of it left, after all. Allan Gray is an authorized financial services provider. Visit www.allangray.co.za to learn how we build long-term wealth for clients. Welcome to another episode of Financial Planners South Africa. Today, I'm really excited to have my friend Johan Vosloo join us all the way from Berlin. Johan is the co-founder of ComSpace, which is one of the main products from Headspace Technologies, and they run a revenue analytics provider for the last 6 years. And today we're just going to have a chat about how ComSpace came alive, how it's grown over the last 6 years from a one-man show to a bigger team, what that journey has been like, and what Johan sees going on in the financial services industry, the things that are working, the things that are not working. Johan, thanks so much for joining me.
Hey, Louis, great being here. Thanks for inviting me.
Johan, you were one of the guests that has been, it's been on my list for a long time to talk to, specifically because you have so much clarity around what it is that you tackle in your business. Running a business and a team of 25 people, there's a lot of demands on your time. How do you go about finding those true north elements, the things that, you really want to be spending your time on?
Oh, Louis, if I had all the answers, I'd probably be sitting on a yacht somewhere sipping margaritas, right? So I certainly don't. I can talk a little bit about a few things that works for us. And then, we're learning and changing and improving all the time. So, 6 years ago, it was literally me. And then shortly after, Marta, my partner, joined. And it was the two of us. And now we're 25. So in growing a bootstrap business over 6 years, you kind of need to, in self-defense, figure out quickly, what works, what doesn't work, how to attract the right type of people to kind of achieve what you want to achieve. Look, there's lots of little things I could hone on, but let me focus on a few of the big things. First thing is that worked for us, and we didn't realize initially how important this was, but we kind of quickly realized how important it was, and it's now one of our core principles is an incredible laser focus on building and maintaining a great company culture. Gone are the days of people being satisfied for over the duration to work at a workplace where they're not being challenged, where they don't feel respected, where they don't feel that they actively contribute to the success of the company, where they don't believe in what the company is trying to achieve to begin with. Those things are more and more and more coming to the fore, and more people are realizing the importance of that. And salary is important always, but it's becoming more of a hygiene factor. And those other things have always been important, but people are just realizing the importance a lot more. Now, I think Marta and I were lucky that both of us are the product of a fairly long career in the corporate world, where I think the most valuable things we learned was, how not to build a small business. What are the things to avoid? And one of the things to avoid is micromanagement and expecting people to only do a very small, very specific, very very defined thing. We found the flip side of that, treating people like intelligent, caring, out the box thinking individuals that they generally are, treating them like that, sitting down with them, jointly come up with goals and targets and expectations, and then letting them getting on with achieving that has been an absolute winning recipe for us.
Johan, the business that you run has a recurring income stream. And so in your industry, they talk about software as a service. And for me, that resonates quite closely because a lot of financial services business have a recurring income stream. How do you manage that type of business differently from one where, you're starting your sales at zero every month?
Look, it was very intentional when I wanted to start a business and start something. I always liked the idea of building a recurring or an annuity income stream. I used to be in the space where we did project work and consulting for corporates, and it's always like a project basis, and it's a big project, and there's a big payoff if the project is successful, but then yes, the duration is a bit longer, but at the end of it, you start at zero again, and you need to find the next project and the next thing. And that never appealed to me. I was always much more into trying to build something that's sustainable, small, incremental, recurring revenue gains that you work on increasing month over month over month. To me, that's the definition of building a business that's got longevity, that's sustainable, that gives you the breathing room and the space to think and plan and operate. If every month, every day, every new month, you start from scratch, you essentially in kind of, hunt, eat what you kill mode, self-defense survival mode. And you very reactionary then, and you're very predatory almost, if that makes sense. Whereas if you work hard at it and you can survive, because it is tough to survive the first few years, but if you can survive to get past the point where you've now built up a bit of a nice, stable annuity income stream, that really opens the door for you to be much more operate with much more intent towards and think with much more clarity what it is that you want to attain, where you want to go, what direction you want the business to move into. So for those reasons, for me, it's an absolute no-brainer to bite the bullet, because it is hard. It often is very hard when you're starting from nothing, but to bite the bullet and work very intentionally to building up that annuity-based income stream business. To me, it's the only type of business I'd ever want to build.
Before we started this recording, you mentioned to me that you want to have a calm business and you want to return to that calm. And what I'm hearing you say is that these are the elements that are contributing to a calm business. Why is having a calm company important?
It's again something that, a lesson that I've learned, and then I forget it and I relearn it again the hard way. Just last year, we started, we had reached a place, what can I say? A place where we had built up a bit of momentum. We had a nice team going. Our product had reached a nice stable platform. We were working just gradually, taking more market share, expanding the business. But then it so happened that two new opportunities came our way last year to partner with some other people and start building two brand new products in two brand new businesses. The timing was right, and we went at it. In hindsight, we probably could have timed it a little bit better and maybe not taken on both at approximately the same time. But I'm not regretting it. It's going great so far. What it did do though, because we didn't think about it and plan as well as we probably could have and should have, is it led to us moving away from a place where we had time to think and we were deliberate about what we're doing, to becoming just very reactionary and very kind of just putting out fires and trying to keep up and trying to deliver and things like that. And it got bad because by the end of last year, a whole bunch of us were just spending a whole lot of times in meetings and planning and trying to, keep all the balls in the air. And I spent the last few weeks over the holiday period just reflecting and reorganizing and rethinking and re-strategizing now at the start of January with my management team. And we're going to do things a whole lot differently this year. We're going to return to this principle of a calm company. A calm company for us is no more than 40 hours a week, no evenings and weekends as a rule, not always just pushing, but taking breaks, taking time to celebrate, achievements and milestones, being more deliberate and careful about planning the next steps. And that's definitely, we're returning to that philosophy this year in a big way. We've already cut down on a whole bunch of meetings. Meetings are just poison, right? It's so tempting to just say, I think I want to discuss something with somebody. Let's have a quick 30 minutes about it. But those add up, right? And they generally time sinks and time wasters. So cutting out a lot of that. Returning to, we're pretty much a remote company anyway, but like most people, like a lot of people since the start of lockdown last year, or what, last year before, good grief, it's 2022 already. So using technology and using online tools allows us anyway the flexibility to leverage what we call asynchronous communication. That means we don't have to pick up the phone or schedule a meeting or have that synchronous, direct, real-time communication about everything all the time. A lot of the things that we want to communicate internally, we can do asynchronously, which means using stuff like Slack or other asynchronous tools where communication tools where we send each other messages, ask questions, share information, but the recipient doesn't always have to immediately respond or immediately consume the information that's being shared, right? So we're working hard on making sure that doesn't become a thing, that people don't feel the pressure of always be online, always be around, and always being reactive, instantly, because that just breaks people's flow and break their concentration and doesn't allow them to get in the flow and be productive on the tasks that they're busy with at the time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, Cal Newport talks about the deep work and carving out time. And what I'm hearing is with that intentionality of where to spend your time, you can actually work on the things that are important to you, but also then celebrate it when you reach those elements. I'm wondering if the financial service industry, specifically smaller and medium-sized businesses, are actually celebrating these milestones enough. I know that you deal with a lot of businesses and you help them to look at their income streams, and some might call it commission and some might call it revenue. Do you see that companies celebrate enough?
Financial services and financial advice practices is a very interesting breed of folks, and I say that with great actually admiration, because I think it's no secret that the industry is the industry. I don't actually like using that word. Let's call it the profession. It's probably more apt. The financial services, financial advice profession is relatively new. It's only been around 30, 40 years max, right? The whole notion of a financial advisor only started, I think, in the 80s, really, in the US, something like that. So it's not very, very old. And initially, unfortunately, and it's very true, there's a lot of that focus on selling products, meeting targets, and that was the only thing that there was. And unfortunately, with that, there's nothing wrong in that in and of itself, obviously, but unfortunately, with that came this quite, at least from my perspective as an outsider, it came this kind of a snake oil salesman, Paulus Moos reputation, and some of it, unfortunately, was really earned by some of the early practices and way of doing things. I think what's happening now, it's in interesting times for the profession as a whole. Look, there's always going to be products, right? There's always going to be financial instruments being provided by big insurance companies, investment houses, and that will always be there. But I think the industry is really maturing, or the profession is really maturing to become more focused holistically on people's needs, at working walking a path with clients, being aware of their whole life situation, not just focusing on solving a very specific part of their financial needs with particular products. I think that shift, that focus, is really permeating the whole industry. I mean, it's on all the conferences and all of it. It's a big talking point, but I think it's really happening, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Some environments, some industries, or some territories rather, and I hate picking on my Australian friends, but I can only shake my head if I see what's happening in Australia, for example. I think the intentions there were really, honest, and it was really aimed at curbing some of the bad practices and bad habits from the past. But my, again, as an outsider, just opinion is that the regulators there just went too quick, too fast, too far, and really kind of almost dealt a death blow to the financial advice profession in Australia. Those guys really had to dance on their toes, and eventually it will probably settle again. It'll be better, and the aftermath will be good. But I think it was a bit quick. It was a bit rough. In South Africa, I there's a lot fingers you can point at South Africa, at kind of structures and government structures and things that doesn't always seem to work so well. But honestly, one of the things that seems to be working not bad at all is the pace and the involvement that the South African regulators in the financial service industry are taking, and the stance that they're taking and saying, look, we're not going to unilaterally force down global sweeping changes on the profession. We're involving people. It's a discussion. It's going to be a multi-year transition to kind of phase out some of the not so great things of our past and phase in more sustainable, more healthy and holistic things. So all in all, I think this financial advice practice in South Africa, their biggest challenges, they've got great opportunities. Their biggest challenges, they must not see the changes, even the compliance, which sometimes feels a bit onerous and a bit laborious. They mustn't see it as a bad thing, as a negative thing. They should embrace it and see it as an opportunity. It weeds out chances and people that's in it try and make a quick buck. And so it weeds out that whole class a lot better than it did in the past. And it allows them to focus on and grow up and mature as a profession and as a professional career. You can see it. I never saw this before, but the last few years, I'd probably say the last 2 years, the amount of youngsters entering the industry, going to study a financial advice-focused degree at university even. I mean, that's so encouraging to me. I think it's fantastic. It's just signs that this profession is finally coming out of its terrible teens phase and starting to operate like a young responsible adult if I can use that analogy. Does that make sense?
I'm so excited to hear that, because I'm seeing the same thing, and the certified financial planner designation has almost become the ticket to enter the game. That is what you need to get before you start delivering advice, where we're so used to doing it the other way around. You do this while you may be delivering products. Can you see any shift in the data if you look at the revenue, and I'm sure you don't look at specific companies, but maybe in aggregate, are you seeing any shifts in the way advisors are charging for their advice? Maybe the types of solutions or products? Tell us what you're seeing.
Look, it's a little bit hard because we only obviously have the data that in aggregate that we can look at on our client database, across our client base, and like you say, we never really focus on any particular client, but we do look at the aggregates, and it may be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because we seem to tend to more easily and more readily attract the type of advice practice which is already intentional about providing a more sustainable, professional, better manageable, service and build a more robust business anyway. So maybe the data we have isn't entirely representational of the entire country, but what I can talk about is what we see across our client base. So what I see across our client base is there's definitely a trend towards building more sustainable annuity-based businesses. Now, of course, that helps a little bit with the whole move towards RDR. People are proactively moving away from trying to sell products that's got big upfront payouts, and they opting, often cases voluntarily, to a more spread out. As long as the client is on the books and as long as the client keeps up with that product, them earning with as long as the client keeps utilizing that thing. There definitely seems to be a shift towards that, which I think is resonates personally, obviously, with me liking the whole idea of a annuity based steady growth business that resonates with me a lot, and we can definitely see a bit of a shift and a trend towards that. But like I said, there's definitely pockets still, I think, where it's just all about product, and that'll always be there, right? And there's always place for people who are product specialists, and they focus on providing products and don't focus so much on the advice, which also I think is interesting to see where this will pan out in 10, 20 years. Also looking at what is happening in other countries, I think that's going to be interesting. But generally speaking, across our client base, definitely more of a focus towards sustainability, more of a holistic focus on clients. People use our software a lot for doing what we call client segmentation or client revenue-based segmentation to understand, what's the whole coverage, what's the whole spread. Are there any gaps that we haven't addressed with our clients, and they can very easily pick it up through just looking at the information that comes from us. And we're starting to see practices leveraging that type of capability more and more and more, which again to me is just a sign of a profession that's becoming gradually more sophisticated and more professional and more intentional about what they want to do.
Johan, you kind of alluded there to the kind of product distribution role that some advisors fulfill. And I'd love to talk around that, comparing it to robo-advisors or electronic solutions, and someone with a heavy technology background and an engager of technology. Like, what is your take on robo-advisors? Are they working? Like, what needs to change for them to work? And so just tell me your experience and what you're thinking about them.
Louis, again, I can only really talk from my perspective, right? So it shouldn't come as a surprise that I really love technology, all forms of technology, but particularly software. To me, there's something really magical about taking these virtual Lego blocks, and putting them together to craft something that, that's functional and that adds value and that makes people's lives easier, gives them some time back in their day, and do it in a more automated, repeatable way than what somebody can do manually. I love that. I mean, that's the crux of why I love technology and software, and developing software in particular. That being said, I'm unfortunately not on the train where, like some of my peers, which seem to be, which is everything eventually will be, robots. AI will provide you with, all the advice you would need. Eventually we'll get to a place where an algorithm will tell you everything that you need in terms of financial advice, and the person will be, the financial advisor as we know it today will become I'm not on that train. I tell you why I'm not on that train. We're people. People will be people, and people aren't predictable. There's broad patterns, but people are individualistic, and people want to deal with another person. And more importantly, and more, I see it more and more, people want to deal with people that they get on with. Years ago, it was, it didn't really matter who the insurance salesman was, the product's salesman or salesperson was. It's just somebody that you went to go buy life insurance. You didn't have a relationship with this person. It didn't really matter. It matters more and more and more. The world is getting more complicated. There's a lot more options. There's a lot more. It's this whole brave new world of NFTs and Web3 and Bitcoin. But even before you layer all of that stuff on top of it, the world has gotten smaller. People want to see the world. They want to live different lives. They want to different careers, do different things, have multiple streams of income. Everything about that is just more diversification. Computers are really good at taking a whole bunch of stuff that's very similar and understanding that and coming up with a pattern for that. But we people, we humans, we're very good at mucking up those patterns, right? Because we change our minds, sometimes in a very short space of time, sometimes due to changes in technology. The work we think, we earn, we live changes. And I don't see technology ever, is probably a very long time, but let's say in the foreseeable future, 20, 30, 50, probably 100 years from now, I don't see technology being able to replace the role of what I think a good financial advisor should be, which is that trusted partner almost that you walk a road with, that knows your kids' names and knows what's important to you and knows what your goals are and what your desires are and what your wants and I don't see technology replacing that. What I do see, which is incredibly exciting, and I can't wait for more financial advisors to embrace this. I see better and better technology becoming available and coming online to help advisors to eliminate the grunt work. The stupid, repetitive things which we used to employ an army of people in the past to do. Technology is really good at automating away that stuff, and that they should be leveraging technology for. And all that and the reason they should be leveraging technology for that stuff is in order to give them more time back to get to that thing which a computer cannot do, which is that relationship with the clients. And understanding where their needs are and act as a mentor and act as an advisor and act as that you can't do. But technology is there to leverage to take care of a lot of the other things, give more time back, raise the bar in terms of consistency, accuracy, transparency of information. Just one example of what people use us for. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that people use our software for, but one big thing is just to make it very transparent to everybody in the business. What is all the money that comes into the business in terms of commission or providing direct advice to clients or a fee on investment advice, all of those various sources of income, just to use technology to make it transparent and know and trust that software is dealing with that in an automated, consistent, repetitive, trustworthy way, and just making it transparent to everybody to see this is what it looks like that's coming in. This is how we're dividing it up. This is how we're allocating it. And before, people used to spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and some people still do, of a month on spreadsheets trying to kind of wrangle those things. And that's such a bad waste of people's time. That's the type of stuff where technology is really making a difference. I don't think it's a threat to financial advisors at all. The only financial advisors, in quotes, I think it should be threatened by technology and advances in technology, and by robo-advisors and robo-advice, is people who are purely 100% just product sales focused. They probably going to have to evolve the quickest, and they're going to have to pivot the hardest to find a role that allows them to leverage that and still add value. Because I think the really commodity parts, investment advice used to be a bit of a, crystal ball gazing. People depended on years of experience, and computers are getting better at predicting those things, right? Better than what people can ever do it. So those people, I think, will have to move and shift and move with the advanced technology a lot quicker and a lot harder. But I think I think there's never been a better time to be a people-oriented, whole life focused financial advisor than right now, than today.
That human first approach, I think, is what we hear so often, what we experience with our clients. And some of the things that you're talking about is leveraging technology in your practice. And you mentioned that you make use of asynchronous communication. I want us to maybe unpack that a little bit. Imagine a practice listening to this where they want to say, okay, we know that we need to focus on things. We want to avoid this kind of busy work, the constant communication. We want to embrace technology. Where do we start with asynchronous communication?
Look, for me, the thing that worked for us really well is to say internally, we don't email each other internally. And we don't pick up the phone and increasingly now, we don't have meetings if it's not really, really necessary. Once you've sat down and you've formalized your goals, and if you do this on a fairly regular basis and have, it's all about relatively frequent, and by say relative, I mean, it's going to be different from business to business and place to place, right? But let's say relatively frequent, every 2 weeks, every month or so. Maybe some people will be once a quarter only. It depends, but get together, review that we achieve what we set out to achieve for the last cycle, for the last period. And if we did, great. If we didn't, let's try and see what went wrong, and let's try and fix and improve on what didn't work. And then together plan for the next cycle, set out the goals, measurable outcomes, and then allow people to get on and achieve those goals. And then the communication, then what we do, like we use a tool called Slack internally. I've mentioned this a bunch of times on other platforms. It doesn't have to be Slack, but for us, Slack works great because it's a text-based chat tool internally. Think WhatsApp for groups, but it allows us to communicate with each other asynchronously. I can send a message to somebody. They know, everybody in our teams know, you don't have to respond to it right now. They read to it. They'll get to it when they get to it, and they'll respond. Sometimes it's just an FYI. Sometimes it is I need something from somebody. But 9 times out of 10, I don't need the answer right now. If I do need the answer right now, I'll say so. If I really do need the answer right now, then I will pick up the phone in air quotes. We use tools like Slack's built-in calling or Zoom calls or whatever if we really wanted to do calls. But for the most part, it's once you've set the goals and everybody knows what they're working towards for the next period or the next cycle, the amount of communication that you need then to get to it actually starts to reduce. If you're clear about what everybody is, and everybody is clear what they need to achieve, then the amount of back and forth that you need, that high bandwidth level of communication that you need to get there, that becomes less, that decreases. And for that, then asynchronous communication really, comes into its own, because then it's only really about, the small nuts and bolts things that you need, because there's always obviously some, a level of communication. But once you've got those in place, and if let's say, if it's a team that works in a particular area, for instance, our onboarding team that onboards new clients, they use a cloud-based CRM called Pipedrive. Pipedrive is a sales-focused CRM. It's great at that. They're the only team that really uses it in anger, but for them, it's fun. They live in Pipedrive. It's got activities that they raise and that they assign to each other. They can set Pipedrive to automatically create new activities as follow-up actions when a particular task is completed, and they leverage that thing to the hilt, which means things don't fall between the cracks or much less often than it would have. But otherwise, there's much less need for that synchronous communication, for calling and talking and definitely not emailing. So I think there's such exciting, and there's lots of tools, right? That's just a couple examples of what we use. But there's such a wide array of technologies available now for financial advisors and financial advice practice as well, for the internal process, for the internal workings, to leverage things like this, to once they've done the goal setting and once they've got that regular review process and improvement process going, to just use these forms of asynchronous communication and get away from spending so much time in direct synchronous communication.
It's wonderful to hear how your business engine operates, and how this is a well-oiled machine. And yes, there might be times where it needs servicing, and there might be, might require an engineer or someone with a hammer to come and fix something. But you're improving this, this vehicle. I'm curious, what are the sources that inspire you? Who are the people that you look up to, and where do you go to find, that inspiration?
You ask me quickly, but if I have to give you a stream of consciousness answer, I'd probably say, off the top of my head, probably 3 different sets of people. The first, and it's been my longest and most continuous and steadfast source of inspiration in my life, is my dad. It's my father. He is 76, 77, I think. But fortunately, he is deathly scared of retirement. So he says, people die of that thing. So he doesn't, he still keeps busy. So he's still sharp as a whip, right? And he's been my longest source of inspiration, and I go to him for advice and just to bounce things off of him. A lot of the things that I bounce off of him, he's not really in the game anymore. He doesn't really understand the nuts and bolts, but it doesn't matter. He can still have the high level conversation. Somehow has that knack of asking, just the right questions and just probing me and stimulating me to think in the right way. So that's a big source for me. Another completely on a different scale, and this might come across as a bit of a cliche, but I'm a huge Elon Musk fan, and Elon Musk isn't perfect, right? I mean, there's lots of criticisms of the way he can be hard on people in his team sometimes, all of that. But some of the things that I admire about Elon, and that's a source of inspiration for me, is he never accepts the status quo. If he looks at the industry, when in early days of SpaceX, for instance, everybody, the conventional wisdom was, building your own rockets is, nobody does that. You go to the big, and there was really wanted one or two sources of people that were building rockets. So they got on a plane, him and his team, they flew to Russia, and they wanted to go buy old secondhand Soviet rockets, right? I don't know if you know this story, but they got there, they had a discussion with the guys. The Soviets wanted X amount for the rockets. Elon said, no, that's too much. It's not going to make economical sense for us. We want to pay less. And long story short, they ended up not coming to agreement. So they got on the plane back without the deal, empty-handed, on the plane back to the US. And his whole team was despondent and down. And what the hell are we going to do now? Now we got a dead in the water. Elon was sitting there scribbling on a pad, making some. And halfway across the Atlantic somewhere, he looked up. He said, guys, we can build our own rockets. I think we can do it. And everybody laughed and they thought, fat joke. And he said, no, I really think we can. XYZ, yeah, I've planned out. And nobody had the insight or the, even thought along those lines, because it just wasn't done, And it was just such a great example of he just doesn't let conventional wisdom and conventional ways of doing things stand in the way of getting to where he wants to get. I don't know how he finds the time of the day to do all the things that he does. That's a whole different story. But that one character trait of him about if he wants to do something, he gets on and he does it. That's a tremendous source of inspiration for me. It allows. I'm not comparing myself to Elon Musk or what we do at all, in no way, shape, or form. But that same mentality allows us really to punch above our weight. We're the small upstart, hyper specialized software as a service business in a very specific industry, financial services, in a very specific geography, South Africa at this stage only. We haven't yet expanded internationally, although we are kind of eyeing it a little bit. Very specific, but and then very specifically revenue management. I mean, it's as niche on top of niche as it gets, just about. In fact, we're the only company in South Africa, as far as I'm aware, that focuses exclusively on revenue management for financial advisors. Nobody else does this very specific niche focus. And on paper, we've got zero business for achieving the things that we're achieving and having attracting the type of customers that we're attracting, including banks and big, even one of the largest insurance companies is approached us now. We've got no business on paper being able to do that, but we've embraced this idea that, but why not? Why can't we build a world-class solution and a world-class product? And why can't we provide out of this world customer service that nobody else kind of offers, because everybody says, no, you can't offer that sustainably. It's not financially feasible. And we say, well, why not? And we just go for it. And we just do a whole bunch of things that flies in the face of conventional wisdom. And a whole bunch of that inspiration is from guys like Elon Musk that I look to and say, well, if they can achieve those crazy things, then we can achieve in our space, in a similar vein, we can try and go for the similar type of actions. And then lastly, believe it or not, the people in my own team is a huge source of inspiration for me. I'm learning so much from, and this is not just the senior management team, even though I've got an amazing senior management team. It's everybody in the company. There's junior people that walked in the door that had matric, had maybe no job or maybe one job before, had no relevant experience to us at all in our industry. But they came in the door with the two things which to me matters absolutely the most, which is great attitude and the right aptitude. And we said, we think you got what it takes. Come, we'll teach you the mechanics. That we can teach anybody, but we can't teach somebody to have a great attitude, and we can't teach aptitude. You come in the door with that, or you have it or you don't have it. And seeing how those people operate and how they grow and how they take ownership of of their domain inside our company, what we do is and how they are in a short space of time working themselves up, so to speak. Not that we've got much of a hierarchy, we've got a pretty flat hierarchy, but just their impact on the business is such an incredible source of inspiration and pride for me personally. I mean, it's one of the things that really makes it worthwhile doing what I'm doing, is to see how this company is being built essentially by the people in it, superseding anything that I could have possibly ever achieved on my own. Is how the people operate and come to their own and grow and contribute. Yeah, that's an incredible source of inspiration for me.
Thank you for that, Johan. It's wonderful to see your passion for your team, and that's coming through this whole conversation. I'm wondering, if knowing what you know now, what would you say to the Johan of 6 years ago that was just starting out?
Woo-wee. You ask tough questions, Louis. I'll tell you, while I mull this over, let me say the first thing that comes to mind. I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. If I had a time travel machine and I could jump in it now and go back 6 years and try and go give myself a pep talk and kind of convey a whole bunch of wisdom about you should do this and you should do that, and I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. We've done a whole bunch of things right, but we've also made a whole bunch of mistakes. But I'm not really sad or disheartened or really bummed about any of those mistakes, because every one of them was a big learning opportunity for us. And every one of them, it's not every one of them, but most of the things that that didn't go great, turn out as great as we had hoped. There's no way that we would have been able to learn that if it wasn't through that actual experience. If somebody were to come tell me that, in fact, lots of people tells me lots of things, but you know how it is. Hearing something theoretically is not the same thing as going through it yourself and learning for yourself firsthand. So I can't really think of something obvious that I would tell. The only thing, I guess, that if not that I needed to clearly, because I'm still around and I'm still going at it, and it's going great guns and I'm having a blast. But there was times early on when it was tough. We were 2 or 3 people. We had one anchor client, and pretty early on in the game, the anchor client, they built their own solution internally, and so they canceled their account with us, which had a big financial impact on us, and just we struggled to pay salary for a month or two, and that's probably the closest I came to, at that point of to thinking, what am I doing? How are we ever gonna pull this thing through? Fortunately, I had other people in my life at that point which told me, man, you'll get through this. Put your head down, keep going at it. You'll pull through. It'll be fine. So if there's anything that I could tell myself back then, it's probably you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. It'll be fine. That's probably the best advice that I would give myself. I don't think I would do myself this service to try and spoil the surprise of the journey ahead, good and bad.
It's wonderful to hear how important this journey is, and how sometimes that's more fun than the actual end destination, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you're having a ton of fun with people that you like, serving customers, improving the financial services industry, and helping businesses like ours deliver a better service to our clients. Johan, for the people listening that might be based in South Africa that's curious to see what it is that you're doing with IncomSpace, what's the best place to reach you or to learn more about your product?
The simplest thing to do is to just go to our website. It's ComSpace, COMMSPACE.co.za. We just spent a whole bunch of money and time and effort to kind of rebuild a whole brand new website. So it hopefully does a pretty good job now of conveying what it is that we do and what's the value add, and answering the question, what's in it for me as a financial advice practice owner or an advisor or a practice manager or anybody like that. But there's a big old book a demo button, and none other than my fantastic partner Marta will give a live demo and have a great discussion. She's incredibly, you know her well. She's incredibly enthusiastic, passionate, really knowledgeable. She's got a great knack for, in that half an hour, 45-minute discussion, to understand the needs of the business, really get a good sense of what people are struggling with, and telling them straight out the gate whether we're going to be a good fit and be able to add value or not. And the best way to just get all of us is just go to a website, click on the book a demo button, and it gives you an automated calendar thing. You pick a time that suits you and pick a time to have a chat with us. We don't do the free trial thing. We don't do, because we think that, this is specialized. This is specialized software and a specialized service that we offer. And people don't really, it's not like commodity type software like an email client or like a CRM system where people kind of know what these things are, because there's lots of them in the market. So the best thing is just to go book a demo, have a chat with us. Let us show you what's possible, what's capable. Chances are we're going to blow your mind, because people often remark to us, we never thought something like this existed, or that there's software that's possible to handle our special way of working internally and of handling our revenue. So that, I would say, would be the best thing to do. Sign up for a demo, have a chat. Promise you nobody's going to do a hard sell on you. You may just walk away there with having learned a few things about your own business, even if you don't become a client of ours.
Johan, you built the rocket that you didn't think was possible. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your excitement and your passion for your team and what it is that you do. I wish you all the best for your future. And thank you once again.
Louis, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And I just want to say on a different note, I really love what you're doing. And I'm really proud to know you and watching with keen interest your journey as can we say you've arrived? I think we can say
There's no such thing.
I think it's safe to say you've arrived as South Africa's resident rock star financial advisor, right? So well done for everything that you do for the profession, everything you do in the FPI, this podcast, the tech conferences that you organize. Well done. And I'm a big fan and a big supporter of everything you're doing.
Thanks, Johan. Bye for now.
All right. Bye-bye.